Wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm delighted to be here and I'm delighted to have you here. I'm here thanks to my wonderful lighting partner, Godox, and we're going to be talking all about the fine art of portraiture and lighting for fine art portraiture, and also a little bit of fashion, because what is fine art after all? Now, if you have any questions while you're watching, please feel free to just pop them in the chat. They will find their way to me somehow. And if I have time, I might answer some as I go. If I think I'm going to answer them later on anyway, I will wait and I will deal with them then, or we might answer some questions at the end as well. So let's get going. In case I hadn't said it already, I'm Sarah Edmunds. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, talking about what is fine art portraiture and also who I am, what I do, and why I do it. What is fine art portraiture? By the way, I'm going to be showing you a lot of my images throughout this presentation. And this picture is a very early shot. I think I shot in maybe around 2012, something like that. And it was a style that I explored with this was shot with flash. And then I abandoned it and went into a different direction. And then I kind of came full circle. So I thought I'd start off my presentation with this picture. What is fine art portraiture? Well, above all, fine art simply means beauty for the sake of beauty. So it's art for art's sake, it's art for beauty's sake. It doesn't have a purpose. So unlike, say, architecture or a vase has a purpose. Fine art doesn't have a purpose. It's just beautiful and we want to hang it on our walls. And so fine art photography is simply a piece of photography that is so beautiful to look at, so impactful. It might not be beautiful, but it might be impactful and it might affect us emotionally, so much so that someone who doesn't even know the person who's in the picture would want to put it on their wall and admire it and look at it. That's fine art. So it's not a retouching technique. It's not a lighting technique. It's something quite hard to put your finger on. So I think only you can really be the judge of whether or not it's fine art or not. So let's start with the basics. People always want to know what equipment I'm using. I use a Sony A7R III, and I have two of them. I shoot weddings as well as portraits and fashion and beauty. And whenever I shoot a wedding, I always have two cameras, one on each hip with different lenses. And my favorite lens is the 70-200. I also love the 50. An 85, 1.4, and 35 as well when I want to go a little bit wider, but that's about as wide as I'll go. Quick aside, if I do want to encompass more of a scene, I will very often take several shots and then I'll stitch them together later on in post-production. I prefer that rather than having a very wide-angle lens because of the distortion that happens with wide-angle lenses. Now, I used to shoot with a wide-angle lens, but about 6-7 years ago, I decided that that wasn't part of my style. So finding your style is very much a personal thing. So if a certain look isn't you, feel free to abandon it and just focus on what you do love. So about me, I was born and raised in Wales. I've been living in Italy since 1996, and that's where I'm broadcasting from today. I'm in Italy right now, and I was in Wales yesterday. So I literally flew in yesterday from my home in Wales, and now I'm in Italy. I've been a self-employed business owner for 30 years nearly, and I've never had what we would call a traditional job, salary job. I've always been self-employed or a business owner. I didn't start learning photography until about 2010, and I was nearly 40. I was on my way to 40. So if you've started late, then I hope that will encourage you to go for it. You can learn very, very quickly. That's what I did. And I shot my first wedding solo, and that was about 6 months after I really started learning seriously. When I say seriously, I went to my first workshop, and about 6 months later, I was working as a photographer. My second wedding was published. I photographed portrait wedding, commercial. And I also do editing and retouching at love-edits.com. So please do go and have a look at that, because I've already had some questions about my editing and retouching style. So if you're interested in that side of it, then please go to love-edits.com or love-edits.com, as you can see on there. My other websites are saraedmunds.co and sarahferraraweddings.com. I used to be known as Sarah Ferrara. I've gone back to my maiden name of Sarah Edmunds. My Instagram, it's no longer Sarah Ferrara Photographer, it's Sarah Edmunds Photographer. Okay, so do give me a follow on Instagram, and yeah, stay in touch. What are my qualifications? Well, I don't have a formal qualification in photography, but I have done some education. I'm a WPPI Master and Judge. I'm a fellow of the societies in the UK. I'm a print competition judge and judge trainer for the societies in the UK. In October, I will be going to the UK to help train print competition judges. I'm also a competition judge for IIC, the Swedish National Print Competition, International Portrait Photographer of the Year for 3 years running now. I'm also the co-creator with my partner and fiance, Dario Righetto, of The Judging Room, which was a great success last year and will be in London at the Societies next year. I've been named Photographer of the Year several times in the UK. Fashion Photographer of the Year, Avant-Garde Photographer of the Year, Advertising Photographer of the Year, Maternity Photographer of the Year, and so on. I've won some awards, which I'm very, very proud of, and I am very grateful to my print competition education, because that's truly what it was, in providing me with more of a formal education in photography, especially the fine art genre. What do I use when it comes to lighting? I use Godox. Now, I am here coming to you tonight, partnering with Godox, but I should state very, very clearly that I was a passionate user of Godox for about 5 years before I started working with them. So, you know, Godox is a brand that I absolutely passionately believe in. I'd struggled with lighting quite a bit. The technicalities just didn't seem to work. When I was shooting weddings, I couldn't get things to just seamlessly work. And one of my very early lighting photography mentors pointed me in the direction of Godox, and I never looked back. I use an AD100 Pro, AD200 Pro, AD300 Pro, A100-600 Pro, and the AD1200 Pro. However, I did start with just an AD200, and then I very quickly bought 2 more because I just loved them so much. So don't feel that you have to buy all of those. If you want to start with just one, we will talk a little bit later about what might suit you. And how many lights are required for fine art photography. I use the X Pro trigger for Sony. The soft boxes I use, I love the soft boxes for the AD300 Pro because they're so quick and easy to assemble. I have a 65 centimeter one and an 85 centimeter one. I also love the lantern softbox, which is just, it looks beautiful because it just looks like a big lantern and it's like a globe of light. I love that one. The quick release parabolic softbox, 120 centimeters octagonal softbox I used for many, many years as my only modifier in the studio. The parabolic reflector. The reverse umbrella is great. It's huge and provides a nice indirect light because it's a reverse softbox. And I also love my silver beauty dish. And I'll be showing you examples of all of these later on. So what's lighting all about and why is it so important? Well, photography literally means writing with light, not lighting with right, writing with light. If you master lighting, and I don't mean the techie bits of it, I mean the visual parts of it, you can bring your vision to life using your equipment. If you fail to master lighting, and it doesn't matter if it's natural or artificial, I use both, as I will show you, you will never have control over your photography. It's as simple as that. And it doesn't matter if you're photographing still life or a face. Okay, it's all about shaping light. The image that I'm showing here was shot with an AD200 in my 120 centimeter softbox. And there was a second AD200, it was quite a few years ago, so I'm trying to remember, a second AD200 providing a fill light. And so that fill light, we're going to talk about that later, provides a lovely soft contrast. And some people often ask me, really, well, did you use flash for that? And I said, yeah. And sometimes you can't even tell if I'm using flash or natural light, which is great. It means that I've done my job. So mastery of light simply means the control of light. It doesn't mean calculations, algorithms, or meters. Although if you love to use a light meter and you have that kind of technical mathematical mind, and I don't mean you have to be a math genius, but some people simply like measurements. Okay, I don't. I'm very visual and instinctive, so I don't use a meter. So whatever works for you. If you do like to use a light meter, they can be incredibly beneficial. But if you don't, then you don't need one, so you can relax. The settings of my camera now, in the images that I'm sharing with you, I haven't shared the exact settings of the camera because every situation is different, and there's no point in really mentioning what my ISO was, because it really depends on the situation that we're shooting in. You can't replicate a given photograph unless you're in that exact situation. I can, however, give you a heads up as to generally speaking, the kind of settings that I like to use, and that is to have as low an ISO as possible. So if you know about the exposure triangle, you know, we have ISO, shutter speed, and our aperture, or our f-stop. I tend to choose my f-stop first. I then, if I'm shooting in ambient light, I'll let my camera work out the other two. So I'll shoot in aperture priority with auto ISO. For weddings, this is an absolute godsend. I love it. It means that I can focus on shooting. All of my pictures have the same look because I like to shoot wide open, and about f2 is about my favorite. I have an f1.4 lens, but f2 is where I get the sharpest focus point. So I tend to like that the best. And then when I'm in the studio, I'll still try to stay quite wide open. So often f2.8 or f2. But then if I'm shooting with flash, then I will go on to manual. And then I'm just looking to have the lowest ISO possible, a shutter speed that allows me to shoot with flash comfortably. And then, yeah, about an f4 aperture, something like that. So simple guidelines. Studio work. There are various situations that you can use. You can have a blackout of the ambient light, and that means that you basically turn the room into a black box. Now, you might have the windows, the curtains open and light coming in, but your camera settings are such that everything looks black on your screen, okay? And that's because the settings just aren't allowing enough light into the camera. And that means that the only light that you can see on your subject is coming from the lights and the softboxes, the diffusers that you have chosen, whether it be a beauty dish or a snoot or a softbox, okay, or even a reflector, okay? So this means that you can add the light exactly where you want it. You can have total control. Now, optional is that if you have daylight available, like I do in my studio, I have wall to wall on one side of the studio. On the longest side, I have windows from floor to ceiling and wall to wall. And that means I've got lots of daylight. And so therefore, I will adjust my settings to allow some of the ambient light to come in and fill the shadows. And so it acts almost like a second light. So a lot of my images, I'm using one light, and it looks like there's more than one light, but that's because I've got my flash, my Godox light as my key light. And then I've got the ambient light filling the shadows and doing the rest of the work, but I'm just using one light. Now on location, I'll usually let in much more ambient light. okay? And I'll add some shaping light to add drama and control of lighting patterns. And how much drama, when I say drama, it's all about contrast. So darkening down the sky and then providing a brighter light on the subject, that's all up to your taste. Sometimes I'll want it to look very natural. I'll want it to look like there's no flash being used at all, because I like a very soft, natural look. When I'm shooting weddings, I don't want it to be really obvious that I'm using a flash. I just want it to look like somehow miraculously it was beautiful light that day, okay? But nobody can really tell that I'm using a flash. That's my preference. Sometimes, though, I will go for a more dramatic look, and I'll show you some examples of that later. Now, you might have spotted, if you have people with eagle eyes might have seen that I've said, let in much more ambient light, and then I put how in brackets. That's my prompt to tell you how. That's more to do with, in the studio, it's all to do about the shutter speed, okay? So when you slow down your shutter, you are allowing more ambient light to come in, and with your aperture, you're controlling more the flash that is being let into the light, okay? So I'm not going to explain the why or how. I'm just going to tell you that that's the way it is, and that's all you need to know. So when I go, for example, I'm shooting a wedding reception, I might want there to be lots of ambient light, because I don't want it to look like a black, a sort of a dull black background and just a bright flash on, say, wedding guests. Have you ever seen those pictures at weddings where, I don't know, there's guests sort of embracing each other and holding up their drink and smiling for the camera, and they are lit, but the rest of the room looks dark, and it looks kind of, you've lost the ambience of the place, okay? So what I'll do is I will slow down my shutter speed, and that will let all of the candlelight or the ambient lighting, that will allow that to come into the picture, and it will give a much more realistic, let's say, it'll look much more like it was on the night, and it gives a more professional look as well. Whereas that kind of very dark room look with the bright faces, looks a bit like you'd get from an on-camera, just any point and shoot camera, okay? So shaping the light, aka quality of light. What is quality of light? What does that mean? So I've heard that before. I've heard people go, the quality of light is so amazing. But what does that mean? Because light is light, surely. Light is photons. So how do we alter the mysterious light quality? Well, I came up with a way of breaking it down, and it's called DDD, the 3 Ds: direction, diffusion, and distance, okay? These are 3 fundamental things. Now, you see how quickly we went on from techie stuff, because I don't want to talk about light meter readings. I want to talk about I seem to have lost. Okay, resume share. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I want to talk about the actual elements, the way that the light falls, the way that it spreads, and the effect that that has on the human face or whatever it is you're shooting, okay? So the first one, direction. Now, no matter where the subject is or who the subject is, male, female, animal, object, whatever, light always comes from above, okay? Light falls down the face and body and casts shadows that fall down and to the side or straight down. Very, very rarely does the sun get to a level where the shadows start to go horizontal or the shadows start to go upwards. So since we were babies, we have seen faces with shadows that fall in a certain way, and we've become used to seeing that. So if we see the shadows falling in a different way, it just looks wrong to us. So imagine, for example, if you take a torch and you shine the torch underneath your chin. This is called horror lighting, okay? It's spooky, ooh, right? Why does it look horror? Why does it look spooky? Because it looks wrong. It just looks wrong to us. So the first thing we have to remember is the direction that the light is coming in. And the direction that the light comes in defines the pattern of the shadows on the face, okay? And direction provides all of the classic lighting patterns that we have heard about, or if you've looked into fine art portraits or fine art photography for portraiture, you will have heard terms like Rembrandt lighting, butterfly lighting, okay? These terms are all to do with the direction of light and how the shadows fall on the face. Diffusion, the second D is diffusion. This is how we modify the light so that the light spreads in a way that is, I'm not going to say pleasing, because you might not want something that's pleasing, but that the way the light spreads on the face or on the object is suitable for the purpose of our shot. Now, the larger the light source, the softer the light gradation, or the gradation of shadows, rather. The smaller the light source, the harder the light and shadow gradation. Soft is not always better, okay? You need to choose the hard or soft light according to what you want. Grids, you might have heard of grids. Grids will often go onto a softbox or a beauty dish. And contrary to what some people believe, grids don't make the light harder. They simply tighten the spread of the light, so it will narrow and focus the light, okay? So if you want to keep the light focused on a smaller area in your studio, you can put a grid on and just tighten that spread of light. Grids are, along with any other modifier, the more modifiers you put in front of your light, the more it will affect the power output, so the amount of light that is reaching the subject. Another way of diffusing light is to feather the light. And by feathering, it means that we are no longer pointing the light directly at the subject, but we're actually starting to point the light away from the subject so that just the very, very edges of the light touch the subject. So if you think of the light being as like a hose pipe, okay, so the light is coming out of the hose pipe, and it comes quite straight out of the hose pipe. If you if you press the hose pipe and make it spray, okay, it will start to come out in a more in a very concentrated way in the middle, and then it will start to spray towards the edges, okay? So feathering is kind of like pointing the hose pipe away from the flower bed that you want to hit and just allowing the fine spray at the side to touch the flowers, okay? It might seem like a waste of water, but let's just say that by doing that, you get a very fine spray touching the flower bed. Whereas if you point the hose pipe straight at the flowers, it's too much, okay? So it all kind of falls onto the flowers and it flattens them and squashes all of the flowers. Let's go with the analogy. Great. Distance is our third D, DDD. Direction, diffusion, distance. So distance is a quick way to reduce the amount of light on the subject. So sometimes if I'm in the studio, if I'm out at a wedding and I'm shooting and I've got my light and it's just a little bit too bright, you have three ways you can very, very quickly adjust the power of the light. You can close your aperture, so increase your f-stop. You can adjust the power of the light, or you can just like pull it back a foot, okay? And that's going to stop quite as much light reaching the subject. So it's kind of like just a little way. And so sometimes I'll think, okay, I don't have time to fiddle with my settings. I don't have time to change the power setting, or I don't want to change the power setting because I need it for another. I'll just pull that light back. Just remember though, that the further away the light, the smaller the light source becomes, okay? Now, if you move a foot back, you're not going to really see an appreciable difference. But if you've bought a huge umbrella, for example, because you want to have the softest light possible, but you've got it miles back, that's not going to give you the soft look that you're looking for. Whereas you can have a fairly small softbox. And I did this when I started off shooting in the studio. I didn't have lots of equipment. I just had one softbox, and it was a 40 centimeter square softbox. And if I wanted a really soft light on a portrait, I'd have that light really close but feathered, okay? So really, really close but feathered. And then in relation to the subject, the distance is really close, meaning that the light source is actually huge in relation to the subject. Okay, the sun is enormous, and yet it's so far away that it seems tiny to us, and therefore the light that falls on us is really hard. So sunlight is some of the harshest light that we can find. So light shaping. Now, I like to use natural light. I like to use blended strobe with natural light. And I also love to use pure strobe. I like to use all three. And I'm going to show you some examples now. Now we're going to look at some pretty pictures now. Okay. So here are some examples of my work. So on the left, we have the dancer. This was shot in camera against that background. So when I say that, I mean that I didn't composite the limbs together or the expression or put the background on. I did extend the background below to make it look like she's jumping higher than she really is. This is pure strobe. So here the light is being controlled entirely by the three lights. I've got two rim lights in soft boxes, and I've got a key light at the front. The second picture of the dancer, again, I explained before that it was two lights plus blended. There's some ambient light in there filling up the shadows, and I've got quite a shallow depth of field, so that gives it this really soft look. Whereas the first picture I'm probably shooting at about f11 because I didn't want to risk being out of focus. She's jumping. I wanted everything to be in focus and nothing to be moving. And then the one at the bottom is actually natural light. And that's using the windows that I described in my studio. This is another natural light. There is quite a bit of editing on this, I will admit, but this was using a bit of natural light as the bride. This is in a real forest. This isn't composited. This was a bride running through the forest, and there was a little pool of light, and I directed her to look up to where the light was falling at the right time. This is pure strobe. Here I'm using one light in the studio with a large softbox, okay, to make the light broad enough to light the two girls from head to toe without any problem at all. This is one light as well, and this is using the Godox A300 and the reverse umbrella. So it's a very large umbrella, and I've got the light pointing into the umbrella so that it hits the white interior and comes back out through a diffusion layer. And as you can see, it gives a really nice, soft, fine art look. This is, I would call this my favorite fine art look. I've got a fairly shallow depth of field. The light is soft. It's one light. And that mimics the lighting that the fine art painters used to use. So if we think about how many lights did the old masters use to do to paint a portrait, it was usually one, and it was from a window. So really, that's all you need to mimic a fine art look. This is another fine art look shot with two lights. There is one light. I believe, if I remember correctly, there's a light to try and highlight the ivy that I had stuck onto my backdrop. The backdrop is actually digitally painted. So there's a brown backdrop with ivy. I've digitally painted the archway. There is one light on this picture which was trying to emulate one of Rossetti's paintings. So when I try to emulate a painting, I'm really kind of looking for that fine art look. This is, I would say, not fine art at all. I'd say this is pure fashion, but this is a great example of using two lights and blended ambient light. So here I've got the ambient light. I've got light behind the subject. These were two AD200s, Godox AD200s. And we have the light behind because I was using smoke in a can, and that will only be visible if there is light coming from behind to light it. Okay, so if there's no light coming from behind, you will not see the smoke. So if you have fog or natural smoke, or you're using a smoke machine or a fog machine or smoke in a can like I was using, I needed to light that up. So I've got the one behind her. You can see it just picking up her hair a little bit, providing a little bit of separation from the background. And then I've got the AD200 in a soft box at the front, but I didn't want it to look overly flashed. So there's lots of ambient light filling up the shadows as well. This is another blended one. So here we've got a beautiful location and plenty of light, but why would I use a beauty dish, which is what I'm using here? It's because I really wanted the gorgeous model with her beautiful dress to stand out from the background. And so I did that by just putting a beauty dish with my AD200s, which, you know, they're so portable and light that, you know, they're yay big I just had it on a handheld pole, and I had an assistant holding out that beauty dish, which I later retouched out. But it's just lighting her up beautifully and just giving her a bit of pop and wow against this background. So lighting, creating tone according to purpose. So why would we choose a silver beauty dish with a grid compared to a huge reverse umbrella with lots of diffusion layers? Why would we choose one over the other? Why would we use natural light? Now, do we want to flatter? Do we want to create mood and drama, which usually means adding lots of shadow? Do we want to emphasize character and wrinkles and texture? Do we want to slim or broaden the face or body? What's the purpose? Okay, you have to think. There's no right or wrong answer. It's not that soft is good and hard is bad. Hard light can be incredibly beautiful. You just have to choose the mood, the subject carefully, because hard light can be just a little bit less forgiving on older skins, for example. But what happens if you have an old man with lots of texture and folds in his face, and you want to emphasize those? Okay, that's very different than having, say, a headshot or a beauty portrait of an older lady where she wants to be flattered. Okay, so you have to think about what it is you want, what it is you're looking for. Very quickly, we need to run through, because it's so important, the classic lighting patterns, which is flat light, split light, butterfly light, loop light, and Rembrandt. Okay, and these lighting patterns are really everything you will find in all portrait photography, whether it's fashion, fine art, you'll find it in paintings. You will find these lighting patterns in cinema as well. So you will, if you watch carefully and you watch your favorite TV series, especially if it's something very cinematically lit, like Game of Thrones, or one of my favorites is Poldark, which is a British series. Ozarks is another one, very good one to watch. These are all very interesting to look at in terms of lighting patterns, how they use lighting patterns and why. So these are some examples of pictures of mine where I've used flat lighting for beauty. Okay, beauty is, flat lighting is great for filling the face with light, so flooding the face with light, and it fills in all of the pores and all of the wrinkles, and it's so flattering, especially if you combine it with a shallow depth of field. So for example, the picture on the bottom right is natural light, and I think I'm shooting at like f2 or something, which is my favorite. The other ones I'm shooting at a higher depth of, a higher f-stop and a narrower depth of field. But you can see that there's, I'm using 3 lights in the other 2 and a reflector. So there's light coming from above and down, from behind to provide some dimension, and a reflector is always going to flood the light with even more light, and it's going to look really glowy and beautiful. Split lighting can be quite harsh. It's where one side of the face is lit and the other isn't. I personally rarely use this, but you can see an example of the actress Natalie Portman. I did not take this picture. This is for educational use only. This is my picture. This is a classic example of butterfly lighting or Hollywood lighting or Paramount lighting. And that's when the light is coming from above and the light cast is just underneath the nose. And it's in the shape of a butterfly. Okay, so it looks like a butterfly with wings, simply because the nostrils and the tip of the nose are creating this, this shadow. As you can see, I've used it in this commercial picture, which was to advertise eyelashes in order to give a sort of a Kim Kardashian Hollywood look. So I've deliberately chosen the classic Hollywood style lighting to give that classic Hollywood style look. I've also used you can see in the catch lights that I've got a gridded beauty dish, so quite a small light source, and I've got a silver reflector. So I wasn't really looking for a particularly soft light. I was looking for something actually quite hard, not so hard that you can see the line of the shadow very clearly, but hard enough for it to give it that Hollywood look. Because if you look at the old Hollywood pictures, you'll find that often they used hard lights because they used these continuous spotlights that had a very hard edge. And that kind of evokes in us the memory of that Hollywood look. Loop lighting is simply the butterfly light, but either the face has shifted slightly or the light has been brought slightly around to the side, and then you've got a little loop to the side instead of underneath the nose. Rembrandt lighting is very important when it is the classic old masters lighting setup that we see again and again in portraits, in paintings of portraits. So if you're looking for that kind of look, you really have to master it. And it means that you've brought the light further around, and the nose is casting a shadow that joins with the shadow on the side of the cheek. And it has this classic, you can just see here on what we call the classic Rembrandt triangle. Okay, this is something you'll see again and again in cinema and in TV series. Here are some more examples of the Rembrandt look used in portraits for fashion and magazines. There's the triangle. And remember what I said about direction, about the light always falling downwards? You see that the nose shadow is very rarely going horizontally. It's going down and then meeting the cheek. There's a beautiful soft Rembrandt light. These are all taken from fashion magazines. I did not take these pictures. These are just examples to show you the way that they're used in popular culture, as well as coming from the old masters in paintings. You'll often see them on album covers as well. And this is a picture of mine for a client who was looking for a fine art look. And so I blended the ambient light and used the Godox AD200 in the 120 centimeter softbox to control the way that the shadows fall on the cheek and on the face. Okay, so I didn't want to leave it just to the, she wasn't facing in the right direction to use just ambient light in my studio. So I had enough light, it just wasn't falling in the way that I wanted it to. So I took my Godox and my softbox and I put those shadows exactly where I wanted them. There's another example of mine where I've deliberately gone for a Rembrandt triangle. How many lights? Now, one of my questions actually was, how many lights should we use? Well, let's start with one, because, I don't want to tell everybody you have to go out and you need a minimum of 3 lights. That's simply not true. Here are some examples of one light. Okay, so I tend to blend fashion and fine art. I think this is a good example. And I just wanted to use one light and keep it simple. There can be a real strength in simplicity sometimes. There's another one that is just one light, something really, really nice and simple. There's another one that is with one light. This was, I believe that the shoot for this picture is on the Godox YouTube channel. If you search for, I think it's called beauty lighting setups, you'll recognize the model on the cover picture. We filmed a whole behind the scenes for that. This is another one that is one light, okay? And this is another one that is one light. This is also on the Godox channel, I believe. And all I've done in this case is that I simply put the model in front of the light instead of behind it. So I just decided I needed a different look. I was taking a picture of her with her flute. The model actually she's a musician, and she wanted a picture with her flute for her marketing purposes. And I thought, hang on a second, let's try this. So yeah, I put the light behind her and I realized that it really created some interesting shapes. So always think outside the box. This is another one light. Okay, so just, you can start with one light, that's absolutely fine. Another question was from Fernando. What would constitute the minimum equipment required for fine art photography projects? The minimum equipment is a camera and a lens. And if you're just starting out, I would say any camera, any DSLR camera or mirrorless camera. And you can start how I did, which was with a 15mm, a nifty 50 1.8 that cost just over $100. That's what I started off with, and you can get some great results with that. If you're talking about lighting, I would suggest if you want to be really flexible and shoot inside and outside with the lightest weight possible, then the 8200s. I shot for 5 years in the studio with just my 8200s, and I absolutely loved them. They're still going strong, by the way. Really, really durable and long lasting. They do an amazing job. Never failed me. This is another one with one light. I also used a reflector, but people said, how did you light the background? That's simply I just kept the model close enough to the background, which was a metallic paint. So this was shot on location with the client for a commercial job. And there was a sort of a shiny silver background. And so the light simply reflected off it. And all I did was add a little bit of vignette in post-production along with the usual retouch, but it's very, very similar to how it came out of camera. This is also one light. This is a fine art look for a client, and yeah, you can do a lot with one light. This was a commercial job with one light. Now in the background you can just see where I've actually forgotten to crop that out slightly. You can see a little light behind the feathers. That's actually one of the bulbs on the client's makeup mirrors. That wasn't a light. There was one light, and it was an 8200. And I believe it was a beauty dish as well. This is also one light. This is a strip box, and I was deliberately going for a classic Rembrandt light. You can see that perfect Rembrandt triangle. This is also one light. This is also one light. Okay, now this has a slightly different look, and this was shot using one AD100 Pro. So quite a relatively low powered light, only 100 watt-seconds of power. Okay, just goes to show you don't need a lot of power depending on what it is you're doing. Now, my goal for this picture was for it to look like natural light. And just to compare, the one on the left is a picture shot in my studio with my window, which has a diffusion film on it as the backdrop. So the model is leaning against the window, and I have white reflectors in front of her, so that's bouncing the light back into her face. But you can see that kind of soft glow of natural light that just has this unmistakable look. Well, we have something similar on the right, excuse me, using the AD100 Pro. But how did I get it looking so soft? And you can see that there's no kind of bright catch lights in her eyes. Just like the natural light one, it looks kind of really diffused. So let's take a look at what I did there. I actually put the light behind her, and you can see, by the way, on the Godox YouTube channel, you can go to episode 1 of the Godox Photography Lighting Academy, and you can watch this whole shoot behind the scenes with all of the details, all of the camera settings, so you can knock yourself out, and also showing you all of the layout. So what I did was I put the light in a softbox behind the model, just the AD100 Pro, and in front of her I've got 2 white V-flats, as close as possible to just reflect all of that light back into her face. So the light is coming from over her shoulder and over her head, coming into the white screen, and then coming back into her face. And I've also got a little reflector as well underneath. So I'm trying to have that one light come behind her, bounce into everything, and then bounce back on her. And there's another diagram showing how that light is working. Okay, so it's direction here and lots of diffusion because that light is hitting those boards and that reflector. And so now we've got this huge light source all coming back into her face and looking really, really soft. This shot is also one light, not all shot together. These are 3 photographs put together. So I had them pose 3 or 4 at a time, and then I had them sort of shuffle up, and then I took another picture. So here I've used the AD300 Pro with the reversible reverse umbrella. So the one that goes into the umbrella, comes back, and there's a diffusion layer. Here we have some examples of blended. So strobe with blended light. Now this, you can watch all of the behind the scenes as well for this shoot is on the Godox YouTube channel. Go and check it out. You can see me shooting this. I'm blending it because I wanted to capture the beautiful, beautiful sky and the environment. So we were outside in the Nevada desert, and we had this incredible real life showgirl. Jolie is a showgirl who works in Las Vegas, incredibly talented, and someone I've known for quite a few years now and shot with for quite a few years. And when the wind picked up and these feather wings started blowing, this was just absolutely incredible. So here I'm using the AD1200 Pro. No, correction, AD400 Pro. AD400 Pro, and I'm using the parabola. Okay, so this is an amazing light, very serious lighting modifier with a very particular kind of look to the light. So what it does is that it really makes all of her jewelry, her costumes sparkle. Okay, so it pulls out the detail of her muscle. It really emphasizes all of that. So we chose this costume and this dancer specifically to show off the qualities of that light modifier. So do go and check that out and let me know what you think. Here's another example of the same shoot. This is blended light. So here I just wanted to capture this incredible evening sky. And yeah, again, using the parabola outside and blending the one light with the other. I should mention that, yeah, both of these are one light. This is another example of blended. So here I'm using the setting sun as the rim light, and I'm using the AD200 in a beauty dish to light our model. And it's not to light her because, as I said, there was plenty of light there. I just wanted to control how the shadows fell on her face and also bring her out from the background, but at the same time not have so much contrast that people immediately say, okay, there's a light somewhere. And this is another one, blending the light. This is another one, blending the light. This was using the AD1200 Pro. And the reason I needed all of that power, 1200 watt-seconds of power, was because I wanted to overpower the sun. So really darken down. This was, I think it was midday or lunchtime about that time on a really bright sunny day in the mountains in Italy near the Dolomites. And I wanted to be able to just really, not just fill in the shadows. I wanted the key light to be the main light source, and just to make everything around her darken down. And so I did that using the 1200 Pro. That also is on the Godox YouTube channel. So go to the Godox Global YouTube channel and you can see the behind the scenes shoots for all of these. This was from the same shoot. So again, I'm using lots of power. I've got lots of depth of field, meaning that my aperture is high. So I think, judging by the starburst on the sun, I would say probably f16 or above, maybe even up to f22. Okay, so really taking control of that sky on a really bright day. And I'm using power to do that. So the 1200 Pro, an amazing battery operated light. This is one of my weddings from way back. And this was done with, I think it was 2 AD200 together to try to provide enough power to balance out the sun. I'm not overpowering the sun, but I'm balancing out the sun. And actually, I want to go to the questions because there was a good question about this. Somebody said, where is it? Let me find it. Something about, okay, here it is. Daylight couple portrait to make background as night while used with high-speed sync, 1000th shutter speed and aperture f4. I could not balance the atmosphere or ambient in the mid-afternoon. This is from Cheyenne. Now, I'm willing to bet, can't tell unless I see the file and all of the exact settings, but I'm willing to bet that using high-speed sync, you're not going to be able to overpower. That's because high-speed sync does lower the power capability of the flash. So if you want to really overpower midday bright sun, you need a powerful flash. You're going to be able to darken down that background, okay? Because the higher the shutter speed, the less power you're getting from that flash. To get the most power from the flash, you need to stay within the normal sync speed, okay? That means shooting at f16 or f22, and that means having loads of power. I hope that makes sense. I'll just answer another quick question. Question from Jade. Favorite off-camera flash? My favorite off-camera flash has got to be, I have to stay loyal to my AD200 Pros. I find that they really do, it's really tough to choose between the 300 and the 100, which is so small, but the 200s are small and they're super powerful. And if you put two together, then you've got a 400 watt second. They're just great. I absolutely love them, even though I love all of them. Let's look at another question. Question from Raoul. I'm looking at your portfolio, which is amazing, by the way. Thank you, Raoul. I really appreciate it. And I would like to know if, besides the soft light, you have to edit your photos with some special technique. I would say that editing and retouching is an important part of what I do, but it's not everything. To know more about editing, you need to go to love-edits.com, and everything that I know about lighting is there, or also in my Facebook group. If you search for Love Edits, training and tools for professional photographers, I think the name is. I do edit quite a lot, especially the fine art. Some things are very obviously, I will actually show you in a second. I will show you the raw picture of a highly edited picture, and also the finished result, so you can see how much of it is editing. But I have to say, nothing will compensate for getting it right in camera. Lighting above all. Okay, lighting is the thing that you really need to get in camera. Another question that is related to this is from Giovanni. What is your color correction workflow when using strobes on location with mixed light temperatures in the immediate environment? Gray card, color checker, calibration. How much do you get in camera on location, and how much do you hand over to post-production? Well, I do all my post-production myself. I also do post-production for other photographers. Post-production, no problems at all. And you can find out more information about that on love-edits.com. If in the studio, I will sometimes use a gray card. I'll often forget, I'll be honest. Color checker is great if you want to get, if you shoot fashion and you have to get the reds in the skirt absolutely spot on, and you have to get the greens absolutely spot on, and color management in that term is very, very important. A color checker is essential, okay? For the kind of creative work that I do, I can be very creative with color, so I'm not concerned with getting accurate colors as I am about controlling the colors afterwards. but it's very, very useful to get things right in camera. I'll be honest, when I'm shooting a wedding, I shoot on auto white balance. I simply am so caught up with the wedding and focusing on what's going on that I forget to change the white balance in camera. So whereas I'd probably get a better result if I had a gray card for every time the lighting changes, simply practically for me, it's not possible because I just forget. So I choose auto white balance and I deal with it later in post-production. If you can, always in camera is the right answer. So 2 lights, let's have some examples of 2 lights. This is my beautiful daughter, and as well as the light I use to light her, to use the key light, I have an overhead light because I wanted to emphasize these, what are they called? Pampas ferns, these sort of boho grasses that I was using. I'd created a set around her, so this isn't added in Photoshop, this is actually in camera. And they were kind of disappearing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to light them from behind a little bit, and that will kind of let the light very, very gently pass through and give us a little bit more dimension. So that's using 2 lights. And this brings me on to a question as well, where somebody has said, where do I find props for fine art photography? Well, those props I think I got from Amazon. Sometimes I will browse stores, online stores for props and ideas, and I'll sometimes the prop will give me the idea and then I will shoot. In my early career, I did everything myself. So I've stuck pearls onto corsets. So there's one picture of mine where there's a ballerina in a pearl corset. I made that. I went and bought lots of plastic pearls, and I bought a cheap corset from Amazon, and I hot glued everything on there, trying to copy what was on the designer. I bought some dresses from various places on the internet. I bought secondhand, and then, but honestly, I'm not very good at all of that. So I'm not really a stylist. And when I met a stylist, my makeup artist, became a stylist, and she's so good at what she does that I love it when we work together now. So a lot of my work where there's something quite elaborate there's usually my stylist is involved, which is great because that means I can just focus on doing the lighting, and I have somebody else doing everything. But my early stuff, I did the makeup, I did the styling, I did the lights, I did the post-production, I did everything myself. It is easier having some help though. This is another one with 2 lights. Here I'm just using an overhead light to provide a general fill and also just light up the hair a little bit. I've got a light and a reflector, and you can see this one as well on the Godox YouTube channel. So you can see all of the lighting setups and all of the behind the scenes showing how I'm shooting everything, and I'm talking your way through it as well. There's another one with 2 lights. This is my self-portrait. This has 2 lights. So for my latest video for Godox, I'd asked, I think on an earlier episode, I'd asked the question, what do you want me to shoot? And one of the answers was mature women. So that's me. I'm 51. So actually I was 50 at the time. So I thought, let's celebrate my 50th and I'll do my own self-portrait. And this was the result. So go to the Godox channel and watch that as well. Please leave a nice comment. It makes me feel good about myself. Thank you very much. Please and thank you. Go easy on me, as I always like to say. And this is just a pullback showing what I'm using. So I'm using a beauty dish, and I'm using the lantern umbrella, I believe, or softbox. I can't quite remember which it was for this one. And I'm using, one is sort of to light my hair and provide fill, and the other one is to light my face and body. 3 lights. Okay, so do we need 3 lights? Well, this one was great fun, and this one is on the Godox YouTube channel as well. This was using 2 lights with gels on a white wall. So what happened was I started to shoot this model on the white wall, and I thought it was going to be really cool, but it just kind of looked a bit dull, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? So I was kind of inspired by her outfit. So my stylist came up with this outfit. And I saw the colors on the sequins, and I thought, okay, we need color. So luckily I had my Godox gels. I put those gels on, and we lit up the background with color. So I've got 2 lights pointing on the background, and I've got 1 beauty dish on the model, and it worked great. I was so happy with this shoot. So this isn't fine art at all. This is really funky fashion, but I would say it's fine art fashion fusion. So we've got a question that's just popped up. I'm going to just keep these. Oh, bless you, Robert. So Robert said, Sarah, you are the best and most informative photography educator that's ever spoken on Adorama events. Thank you, Robert, whoever you are. Thank you. You've just made my evening. What a lovely thing to say. Thank you so much. 3 lights. So go and take a look at the video. This is great fun to shoot. And we were shooting in Milan at an amazing place called Cross Studios, just this amazing studio. So go to love-edits for info on coming and shooting using all my Godox lights with me. I've got the 2400, the 2400 watt second battery pack, which provides incredible power and speed of like you can shoot on burst mode with this power pack. Okay, so you don't have to wait for the flash to recycle. So I would love to experiment with that with some students. I've got the 1200 Pro, I've got the 600, I've got the 400, I've got my 200s, I've got my 100, and I've got every modifier I think that Godox makes. And yeah, we should go there. And if you want to come and shoot with me, then yeah, contact me, because I would love to show you everything that Godox does and just how amazing it is. Now, somebody said, another question from Joe, how do Godox lights compared to other brands? Are they better, more sturdy, more reliable? Well, I can't answer that completely because I haven't tried all of the other brands. I've tried a few. All I can tell you is that when I switched to Godox, I did not look back. I've also been to studios where they provide very, very good lighting from other brands. And I bring my Godox lights with me. I just love them. I really do. And as I said, before I started working with Godox, I was using them for 5 years. And as I said, I just never, all of a sudden, everything worked. They were light, they were powerful. They just, they're so innovative. They're always producing things way before everybody else. They're just a great company and really, really cost effective. I mean, let's be honest, that's important for everybody. So, you know, the quality and price is simply unmatched, in my opinion. Are they durable? Yes. Yes, I'm still using my 8200s now, and I bought the 8200s before the 8200 Pros came out. So when they were released in 2017, they're still going strong. I'm still using them. The batteries last. I charge the battery and I use them for a full wedding, and I don't have to recharge them. They go in my handbag. They're fantastic. I can't say anything more than that. Kind of look where I've got the colored lighting up that white background. Now, the important thing when using gels is that you need shadow in order for the color of the gel to take. Okay, if you've got too much light pumping through that gel, it's going to wash everything out. Okay, so you can see there I've just got the beauty dish, and then I've got the 2 gels pointing, and then the 2 gels are kind of blending and sort of making that nice mix between the 2 colors. This is another one with 3 lights. This is also in the YouTube Godox channel. So what I've done here is I've slowed down my shutter speed. I wanted to get a little bit of movement, so a little bit of blur, while also using the flash to freeze the subject. So what you're seeing here is the ambient light. My slow shutter speed is blurring the ambient light, and the flash is firing the features. And the 3 lights are, as you can see, we've got the 2 strip lights, just providing a rim light to provide separation and really pick out her hair, because otherwise we've got dark hair against a dark background, could get lost. So we've just got a gentle rim light. And my suggestion for rim lights as well is don't overdo it. Just make it subtle. Okay, you don't want to blast those rim lights to the side and have it look like there's a nuclear explosion going off behind her. 3 lights, again, this is exactly the same setup. So with 3 lights, I love to have a central light and then 2 rim lights, just providing dimension. It's giving a 3-dimensional look. This is also 3 lights, but much softer. Okay, so I'm trying to make everything, just trying to make it look like there's a little bit of light coming through these curtains. So these are some very, very inexpensive. They cost a couple of euros from a very, very well-known furniture store. And I just pinned them up and hung them to my lighting railings I've got on my ceiling. And yeah, just and kind of had this curtain surrounding her and then shone the light very subtly through the back. And this was the episode 1 of the Godox Photography Lighting Academy, where I'm showing, really showing off the AD100 Pro. So I'm using the 100 Pro for this in the studio. So remember, we needed the power, I used the 1200 Pro outside to provide all of that power, 2 or f16. And I've got the little soda can sized AD100 Pro to do this studio portrait, which has a beautiful soft look. This is also 3 lights. So here I've got a little bit more power, and I've got the light blasting against the white background to make it look celestial. I've just got this white chair against the white walls, and I've got instead of the rim lights pointing to the model, I just turned them, and the bare bulb is pointing to the white wall, and they're brighter than the light I've got on the subject. I'm not going to talk about lighting ratios because that's not how I work. I tend to eyeball it. So I will just look to see what the background looks like, and then I'll add the key light. I will see what the one looks like without the other. Does it look okay? Is my histogram solid? Yeah, we're good to go. And this is another one with 3 lights. This is another one with 3 lights. Okay, I love to use 3 lights when I'm trying to create dimension, so a 3D look. Okay, the fine art look tends to be very, 1 light looks very classic. The 3 lights looks a little bit edgier, a little bit more modern. And here I've got a mixture of the modern with the old-fashioned. So she looks super, super modern with the makeup and the hair and the lighting, but then she's got the costume that looks, so I kind of like that dichotomy, if that's the right word. I can't remember. I think so. Now, here's an example as we come to a close. Here's an example of the power of lighting. So this is a student of mine who did private mentoring with me and who wanted to learn fine art lighting. And, a working children's photographer, very good. But this wasn't a fine art look. And so he said, how do I make this look fine art? So I said, well, we went through, I taught him all of what I've just taught you and a little bit more in depth. And this was the result, which is much more fine art. And it's just 1 light. Okay, so the other one was using 1 light as well. But then the fine art look just is refined. There is some retouching as well to give that little extra step. But as I explained to him, it wasn't enough just to take that original picture and do lots of retouching on it to give it a fine art look. We had to go down the before and after, any retouching. So this is highly retouched. However, you can see that the lighting is there in camera. We've got a 3 light setup. I'm using a beauty dish. I'm using a beauty dish because I want the specularity. She's got highlighter and glossy makeup, and I wanted to bring out that specularity. So I chose a beauty dish with a silver interior to get that specularity. I've got the rim light to create modern dimension. And I had a vision for this. I knew where I wanted to go, and I needed the retouching to really refine it. Yes, this did take a long time, but this is fine art. So fine art is not something that you do quickly. So I was quite prepared to spend the time finishing it to give it the look that I wanted. But as I said, the lighting is there from the beginning. This is a test shot from one of my workshops. So this is the kind of thing that we do on lighting workshops with me. And I always take this was shot in the UK, and I packed my bag full of Godox lighting, and also the photographer I was who was hosting me in her studio, she also had Godox lighting. So yeah, I wherever I go, I take my Godox lighting with me. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit me with your comments, your questions. I'd be happy to answer them. And yeah, just keep asking the questions even after we finish this, and Adorama will get them to me, and I'll see if I can find a way to share them with you. So let me just look through, see if we've got any more questions. So Terry has asked me, do you always use a physical background, or do you put a digital one in later? I do both. I try to, honestly, whatever you can do in camera will get you to a better result. So I can't think of a situation in which you would get a better result by putting a fake background in compared to having the real background. Sometimes, however, I will I'll be retouching my picture and I'll think, you know what, it needs something else here. Okay, a bit like the one I showed you that was based on Rossetti's, the one with the apple. In the original, it's actually a pomegranate. I adapted a little bit, and in that one, I thought, you know what, I think this needs an archway. This needs a little bit of depth, because the original painting had a few extra things as well. So I painted that one in. Questions from Ed. Any ideas for good, free, indoor New York City locations for those without studios? I wish I was a New York City native. I'm not. I did live in New York. I did live in Manhattan for about 4 months in the early 90s. But I would say anywhere that gives you good lighting. It doesn't matter where it is. Good lighting, natural lighting usually means a window and you stepping away from the window so that the light is coming through at a nice angle. Okay, you don't want it to be coming too suddenly from above. You find that if you have a window behind you and you have somebody stand in the middle of the room and you have them walk towards you, look very carefully at their eyes. You will see a moment, and it will be a foot difference. So you have to watch carefully, and their face will light up. They will suddenly look like they're glowing. Their eyes will light up, and it will look really beautiful. It'll look like really good light. Okay, so have them do that. You stand in front of the window. They walk towards you, slowly, watch them. Okay, stop. That's it. You've got to look for the sweet spot. That's what I call it. Okay, we've got some messages coming through. Raoul, Sarah, thank you so much for all your wisdom and inspiration. Not only works amazing, but also user person and educator. Thank you, Raoul. That's lovely to hear. Thank you. Tom, thank you for sharing. I was taught that light reveals and shadows define. Absolutely. Okay. Sculpting is all about light and shadow. Comment from Christina. Thank you for such clear direction, incredible inspiration. Thank you, Christina. Comment from Chuck. Your explanations are very easy to understand. Yes, that's always my goal. Your combination of seeing the sample and hearing your explanation makes it sink in. Thank you. You are very, very welcome. I would say that is a wrap. Thank you so much. And I look forward to being invited by Adorama back again. Anytime you want me, I'll be here. Look forward to seeing you online. Do reach out, shoot me your questions, shoot Adorama your questions, and see you next time. Oh, we got one more question. Hang on. I've been told to wait. Meanwhile, Rachel says, thank you, Sarah. I love your definition for fine art photography. Thank you. It took me a while to investigate that. Okay, Rachel, my garage studio has light coming in from above, but it creates a light from the edge of the garage on the background, even if I diffuse. Any ideas? Well, I would say that the best way to control any light that is spilling where you don't want it is either to, if you're shooting with ambient light only, then you need to invest in something to block light. So big pieces of foam board or V-flats or anything like that. Or you can do it using strobes. And then you use your camera settings to do what I said before, which is like turn everything into a black box. So kind of block out all of the ambient light and then use your strobe to place the light exactly where you want it. You might not be able to, if you don't have a very powerful light, you might not be able to black everything out. You should be able to get close though, because I've got lots of daylight coming into my studio, and I'm with my 200s, I was able to control the light quite well. So yeah, look into, mastering strobe lighting and blocking out the ambient light using your camera. Okay. Other than that, try some V-flats. I think we're done. I think that's a wrap. Adorama. Adorama says they think that's it. Thank you, everybody. It's been great. Thank you for having me.